Revision is so powerful. Revise your day every night before you go to sleep to the way that you wanted it to be. Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is the Law and Promise from Neville Goddard. This story here, this testimonial that I'm going to give you today is on revision. It's actually a woman that went to see Neville Goddard at one of his lectures, actually attended one of his lectures and stayed behind and actually spoke to Neville Goddard about attracting a specific person, using the law of assumption and using revision to get a specific person, to actually marry this specific person. It's actually a really interesting story. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. Okay, so try to revise your day every night before falling asleep. Try to visualize clearly and enter into the revised scene, which would be the imaginal solution of your problem. This revised imaginal structure may have a great influence on others, but that is not your concern, because the other that is influenced, the other person that is influenced in the following story is profoundly grateful for that influence. And this testimonial is by LSE. Okay, so let's begin. Last August, while on a blind date, I met the man I wanted to marry. So she, in August, went on a blind date and met a guy that she absolutely loved, okay? Loved everything about her. This happens sometimes, she says, and it happened to me. And she says that he was everything she had ever thought of as desirable in a husband. 2 days after this enchanted evening, it was necessary for me to change my place of residence because of my work. And that same week, the mutual friend who had introduced me to this man moved away from the city. I realized that the man I had met probably didn't even know my address, and frankly, I was not even sure he knew my name. And after your last lecture, I spoke to you of the situation. So she went to Neville Goddard's lectures, and then she spoke to Neville Goddard after the lecture. Although I had plenty of other dates, I could not forget this one man. Your lecture was based on revising our day, and after speaking to you, I determined to revise my day every day. Before going to sleep that night, I felt as if I was in a different bed, in my own home, as a married woman, and not as a single working girl sharing an apartment with 3 other girls. I twisted an imaginary wedding band on my imaginary left hand, saying over and over to myself, "This is wonderful. This is wonderful. I really am Mrs. J.E." And I fell asleep in what was a moment before a waking dream. Okay, so this is what she creates right here. She imagines that she's in a different bed, but in her own home, but as a married woman. And she created that married feeling by twisting an imaginary wedding band on her imaginary left hand, saying over and over to myself, "This is wonderful. This is wonderful." So she's also like affirming during her visualization here. So this is going to be super powerful. So she's visualizing herself in a different bed, but in the exact same home she lives in now, but she's a married woman. And then she's affirming, "This is wonderful. I really am Mrs. J.E." And then she falls asleep in that very moment. It's almost like a waking dream, she says. Okay, so she repeated this imaginary scene for 1 month. So she's doing this every night for 30 days. 30 days, night after night. The first week in October, this man found her. Okay, so and on their second date, she says, "I knew my dreams were rightly placed. Your teaching tells us to live in the end of our desire until that desire becomes a fact." And then she says, "So although I did not know how he felt towards me, I continued night after night, living in the feeling of my dream realized. The results, in November, he proposed." Okay, so October, that's 1 month. So this guy didn't even know who she was, barely even knew her name. And then by November, within a month, after she had already spent a month visualizing and affirming, it only took a month for this guy to propose to her. So in January, we announced our engagement, and the following May, we were married. The loveliest part of it all, however, is that I am happier than I have ever dreamed possible, and I know in my heart he is too. Mrs. J.E. Yeah, I actually remember one of Neville Goddard's lectures, and I think I have posted it on the channel a couple times about this, where Neville Goddard tells everyone, if you're trying to get a specific person, imagine that wedding band on your finger and actually twisting it, on your finger in your imagination and creating that. So this actually lines right up with what Neville Goddard teaches. And what I love about this the most is that Neville Goddard actually mentioned in the beginning here that do not be concerned about influencing the other, because if this is correct, that we're living in an infinite realities, like there's a parallel, there's infinite realities, and they're all congruent or parallel with each other, and then you're transferring to these different parallel realities, and there's different versions of every one of us in each parallel reality, then you're not really influencing anyway. You're actually living in a world, and you're just moving to that parallel reality where that person is actually with you. That same person that, say that person didn't want you, then you're not going to stay in that reality with the person that actually doesn't want you, because you're imagining this person wants you. So you're going to shift to the reality where that's going to come true. So you're not really influencing the person in the world that you are, because they're living in their world and they're manifesting their world differently too. They're shifting just like you are into their parallel realities. So you're not really influencing anyone. You're just living in your world that you're controlling, and then everyone else is just playing their parts within your version or your concept of yourself. So I like the way Neville Goddard points that out here, is how don't be concerned about influencing the other, because, and in this story, of course, the other person was profoundly grateful, obviously, because that is the reality that she created for this person. So that's the ultimate outcome, is that they're all going to be happy, because that's what she visualized, and that's the concept she holds of herself. That's her inner dialogue, and I absolutely love this story. All right, guys, I love you guys very much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to give me one thing you guys are grateful for, or anything you want me to cover. Put that in the comment box below, because I use that for content in the future. And I'll post a card right up on the screen for you if you want to watch more videos that I've created from Neville Goddard readings, the power of awareness, the law of assumption, any of this. I'm going to have that, post that card right up for you. And beware of the scammers in the comments. If somebody responds to your comment that you place and it looks like it's me, it's not, especially if they're telling you to contact them at a specific number, whether that's Snapchat, Telegram, or WhatsApp. I do not use any of those, so that is not me, and do not respond to that, and just report them. All right, I love you guys very much, and I'll see you in the next video.